Welcome back to the Celtics Nation Rise account. I'm Griffin Aldridge. Alongside me, we have Andrew Quinn, and we have some breaking news. The Boston Celtics have waived JD Davison. I gotta start off by this. This is another champion that's gone. We were just talking about this with Drew Peterson, but I'm gonna pull this picture up. JD Davison is now on the list of former Celtics because he is waived from the Boston Celtics and now is a free agent. And what are your initial thoughts on the Boston Celtics waiving JD Davison? And more importantly, I have to say, before training camp, because we were live with Ian when this news broke, and my initial thought was this is, we thought JD Davison could potentially be on the chopping block for the Boston Celtics. However, we thought that would come in the mix of training camp. And
Yeah,
he hasn't got an opportunity with the team, and they just waive him. They just signed him, and now they waive him. But what are your thoughts?
yeah, I didn't necessarily see it coming. They signed him to that contract. I thought he has shown really great efforts, really great performances in the G League, and I thought this was his time to have a little bigger role in the Celtics lineup or even just give him a bigger chance. So it definitely caught me off guard. But I could see it coming just because I don't personally think JD Davidson is as big of a piece for the Celtics that everyone thinks he is or could be. I think he's a talented player. I think he can put the ball in the hoop at will. And I think that he is, a creative offensive player. But I just kind of thought that from watching him in the G League and just seeing him play other, during the regular season on the Celtics, I just don't think he has that extra X factor to really take a team to the next level in the NBA. Like, I just don't think he's that type of player that's going to have crazy strides in the NBA. And I really think that he's ball dominant and he doesn't necessarily fit the Celtics mold, and it may be hard for him to find a mold elsewhere.
Well, I have to say this. I completely agree with you on that, Andrew. And I agree. He's very ball dominant, and you and I have watched him plenty of times in Maine. He's a
Mm-hmm.
very ball dominant player, and that never has fit the Boston Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
However, one thing I do look at JD Davison, and I look, is his sample size with the Celtics.
Yeah,
He has not had a full lot, and Daniel and I were going over it. I don't have the exact stats. If I called up Daniel, he researched it for us. But, in his 3 years with the Boston Celtics, I think it's 3 years, he has not had a lot of run with the Celtics. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jordan Walsh has had more time with the Celtics, and JD Davison barely played his first year. And then you look at this year, and you already mentioned it, Andrew. This is the year where JD Davison comes out and is supposed to shine, and you kind of see what we get with JD Davison because you've never seen him put in time that's other than garbage time for the Boston Celtics. I mean, the times that he's been putting in the games is either when there's 2 minutes left, Celtics are blowing out a team, or they're getting blown out. So you throw in
mm-hmm.
JD Davison. You haven't had a full sample size with JD Davison. However, the Boston Celtics end up waiving him. And I
Yeah.
look at this and it's like, could we have expected this? Yes, we expected it, but how soon? Now, a question I want to ask you because we talked with Ian about this, and I said, could there potentially be a move that's closer on the horizon than we think?
I
Now,
would
what were you
I
saying?
would I would say so. I mean, it got them under the apron, right? They're back under the second apron, and there's already been discussions with Niang and Simons. Are we moving them? And now you're getting rid of Davidson. Brad Stevens doesn't make moves without them being calculated. There's a clear reason why this happened. It's not just I want to get under the second apron. Like, I think there's a reason why. And I will say, not having like getting rid of JD Davidson is one of those guys where it's just, to me, he's not necessarily that winning caliber player. And
As of right now, though,
as of right now, I understand that. But
he's young.
I just don't know
What his ceiling is.
you don't know what his ceiling is, but just watching him on the offensive end, I feel like I'm kind of getting away from, what we were talking about with Brad Stevens and all that. But just analyzing his game a little more, just his kind of careless turnovers and kind of just, not being efficient necessarily on offense is kind of what scares me. But also, like you said, not having him up at that next level and really inserting himself there in the NBA and getting time with the Celtics, it's like, could he have had time to develop? But I think it's also maybe they're just like, we missed our chance to develop him. And now we got to cut our losses and get rid of him, knowing he was, second round, right?
Yeah.
Knowing all these things, it's like maybe they're just looking at him. Maybe they're looking at his offseason production and like what he's actually doing for the Celtics as of right now. And they're just kind of like, man, is it really that big of a loss for us? And personally, I don't think so, because I think he's a guy that has too many question marks for the Celtics, who's a team that is looking to possibly compete next year. And like you said, still have moves to make. I just don't think that Brad is done. I really don't. What do you think on that? Because I think a lot of people are wondering that.
No,
or just wondering like what's the next move? Because it feels like we're kind of sitting right now and just waiting for something.
Well, I agree, because now I feel like obviously you see the Celtics like to keep open 14 roster spots and have one, for a buyout veteran at trade deadline or something like that. They like to keep their roster spot open, and this could potentially be that. I mean, the Boston Celtics could keep their roster spot open, and you look at this and they could just roll with it. However, there's two names looming, and one of them being Ben Simmons and one of them being Charles Bassey. Now, I see it more reasonable, and Ian leaked this, so go watch out the video where we were doing top 100 with Ian, because he breaks down all of that. But I look at this is, all right, Ben Simmons, there's teams that are interested, and he could potentially go elsewhere. He's more of a player that you could obtain now. However, Charles Bassey, you could be like, all right, come to training camp. Let's see what you can provide for us in preseason. Then we will discuss roster situations. Could there also be teams that are like, hey, I want Charles Bassey. Do we obtain a Charles Bassey or a Ben Simmons? That's where my brain is focused right now, is one of those players, getting focus elsewhere. Is there other players along the lines where you're like, all right, are we looking after them, or are we just keeping this roster spot open? That's where I am.
Yeah. I will say, though, it's like waiving JD Davison. You're going to see there's going to be a move coming. If there is a move, there's going to be a move coming in the next very soon, because you're not just going to waive him without a plan, right?
No.
So
why would you waive him without training camp? So that's
right. So there's something looming. There's something that is going to happen.
So brace yourself.
So definitely brace yourselves. We're catching it. You catch it on every live, which is crazy.
I know.
We caught it again.
Let's just wait to record a little bit. We'll wait like a week or so, and then we'll be like, all right, now we could brace yourself, because
I think that's an interesting question with Ben Simmons, Bassey. Have you guys had that discussion yet? Like,
we really haven't. Honestly, it's because
I think it has correlation with JD Davison. Yeah. So what do you think?
I look at Ben Simmons, and I already said a lot of this, and I feel like the takes on Ben Simmons are kind of short-ended, because we've talked about this for so long. It's like the Durant news again. Like, you hear Ben Simmons all the time. Yeah. I'm just going to be quick on it too. I look at this. This is a guy that you could develop, and there might still potentially be something there. However, I wouldn't mind tacking him onto the roster right now. And I know a lot of Celtics fans are like, no, don't do that. But I wouldn't mind that. But I would rather obtain a Charles Bassey right now with that roster spot. But what are your thoughts? Would you acquire a Ben Simmons or a Charles Bassey?
Honestly, I might take a swing on Ben Simmons, because I really like his.
I say they might take a swing on Ben Simmons, and that they might have Charles Bassey come to training camp, and then
come to training camp and just see how that goes. Like, I think that would be the move, because Ben Simmons is not getting paid as much as as he would have if he panned out, or he continued to play in the NBA at the level he was playing in. He's kind of taking a little dip, and I do think he's one of those players. It's like, you kind of have an idea of what you're getting when you like it's not like I don't think there's a crazy room for him to like completely develop, but you know what you're getting with him. You know you're getting like a defensive guy that can really, you know, guard multiple positions. You know, you got a guy on offense that's super creative that creates shots for teams and for teammates. So, and I think the Celtics need that. Like I do. I'm gonna keep hammering it home. I think the Celtics need someone that can really facilitate, can really create open shots. That isn't Brown, that isn't Tatum, that isn't because I want these guys to kind of have that pressure taken off of themselves where you can give a ball to Ben Simmons and say, "Hey, go create something." Like I want more guys like that, and I want more guys that just can move off the ball and just start creating offense. Like I think that's the direction right now that I'm
No,
seeing
totally.
that the NBA is going in the way that that's a winning formula. And you got to always continuously shift and shift and shift. And I think Ben Simmons is just he's a player that I think has this kind of like floor where you know what you're gonna get and there's potential ceiling, you know, and I don't think he can necessarily like hurt you unless he doesn't play. But if he's on the floor, he's going to help you out.
Oh,
And
totally.
I just like him as a player. And I just think, and I also think being in the Celtics organization, being part of a winning culture, you know, Simmons has been on the 76ers, who just can't seem to put things together, who kind of always have a little tension going on in that organization. And then he's been on the Nets, who,
The
you know,
Clippers.
Clippers, like all these teams that just can't seem to really get over that hump. So you put Ben Simmons in a winning formula that keeps him at bay, that makes him feel rejuvenated, you know? Maybe he feels rejuvenated being on this team. And it's like, I'm part of a Celtics organization who embodies the winning culture. And maybe that just kind of brings that fire, that passion back to him that he's felt in the past. Maybe, you know, and
Really.
I think you can do that. And I think especially next season where the cards are right now, it's like maybe give him a chance and just see. And what if he like goes off? What if he goes crazy and like shows the league that he can and is capable of performing at a high level, and then you move him? You know, it's like there's so many opportunities. I feel more with Ben Simmons than Bassie in my eyes.
And we'll see once. I mean, we'll see soon because JD Davison is now gone, and
Something's going. Yeah,
yeah, and I mentioned it, former champion, as you see right here. There is something with JD Davison that again I love about JD Davison because you and I watched him a lot. I mean, me probably a
definitely.
little bit more because I was there at pretty much every game. But again, there is still room for JD Davison to get a chance in the NBA. He's coming off of G League MVP, and you look at this, and I feel like he has not been tested enough. It's not like one of those players where he's had a full sample size, and it's like he's not one of those players where it's like, all right, we gave him a shot in the NBA. No, he barely has played in the NBA. Yes, he's a ball dominant player, but if you throw him on a team like, I don't know, the Utah Jazz, well, another breaking news, the Jazz waive Jaden Springer. But if you throw him on
Mhm.
a team like the Jazz or, I don't know, the Pelicans or Wizards or something like that, could he be a player that comes off the early end of the bench and be a ball
I think
dominant keeper?
that's an interesting
And
perspective
what's
though to
his
look at it
ceiling?
like JD Davidson playing coming in that like 6 man rule where he like or a little later in the bench where
Or
they
the
do
Nets.
give him
The Nets would be a
yeah
perfect
or
suit.
they
So
do give him like the keys to the offense and say go get me this amount of points. Like you got to find that role for him. I just don't know if he fits in the Celtics,
no.
if his role fits in the Celtics where
It,
at this stage of where they're
and
at.
even with the Celtics, he had Peyton Pritchard ahead of him. Now Anthony Simons ahead of him. You could argue Derek White to it when he plays the point guard. He's had three people already ahead of him in a year where you're trying to kind of retool and see what can work. And JD Davison, I hope the best for. I think he's still a player that teams shouldn't doubt out. And I think this is a player where you look back, you look back at Aaron Nesmith, you look back at some other notable Celtics players like Max Strus, even for example, that the Celtics didn't have a whole sample size with. Aaron Nesmith, I don't know. You could just keep going on and on with players that have success. I think JD Davison falls under that category. And I already mentioned Andrew. I had the opportunity to meet JD Davison not once, not twice, like a bunch of times. I've had conversations with JD Davison. And here's the first time I ever actually met JD Davison right here in this picture. But I have to say, I want to give a quick JD Davison
Yeah, what
memory.
do you think of him? Yeah.
I look at this. We actually just had someone on the podcast too that said he's a very quiet, shy guy. He doesn't look like he wants to be out there. I can testify to that because my interactions with JD Davison have been slim. I mean, I asked him one time, I wish I could pull up the video, go check it out. It's one of our shorts. I was like, "You dropping 50 tonight?" And he goes, "I don't know." And every time it's like he mumbles a lot. He's a man of very few words for sure. But also to add on to JD Davison, I was on live with DJ Stewart and I was like, all right, I need to crack on what's going on with JD Davison because every time I talk to him, he's very short. Like he's a man of very few words. And he said, "Oh, JD, man, he's in the locker room. He's always talking. So maybe needs to open up a little more with fans, but he's
I
definitely
mean,
few
hey,
words for sure."
you want to keep to yourself. That's not a problem, you know? I mean, do your thing. I mean, if you're putting points on the board, winning main Celtics games, I mean, we're not going to
That's all I
complain.
gotta do. And he's nice. Like every main Celtics game, he'd be out there. I'd see him. He'd be out there signing things for kids after he does his shots to warm up. So
It's
I
awesome.
I really hope this is a guy that's not wasted talent because there is talent there. I mean, he just won G League MVP, so there is talent there. I just think he needs to be with the right team, and he needs to showcase his talent because, again, the Celtics haven't given him the opportunity that he deserves. So I believe there should be a weaker team out there that gives him that opportunity and can potentially see what happens with JD Davison.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think he is a very talented player. I think that he has a lot of like an offensive bag that's just it's deep. But and I'm not like trying to not give him his flowers, but I just something something deep in my gut like that from watching him play, like winning like mentality that like those small details that go into winning a game like a championship. I just don't know if he has that in his DNA. But prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, I look, but no, you're so right because again, small sample size. He's played 3 seasons for the Maine Celtics and hasn't had a lot of run with the Boston Celtics. I mean, they haven't given him a lot of run, and it's just clear that he's a point guard who he's selfish at times. I do get
Yeah.
that, not very defensive oriented too. But he's a guy who throws the ball down. He's a guy who's going to give you a lot, and I don't want to see him leave the league without a fair chance. I
No,
think
I agree. I agree. And I think that I don't think like, I'm not saying I don't think he can play in the NBA. Like think he can play in the NBA. I just don't think that his play style and all that necessarily like
it's the Celtics.
translates to a winning basketball team that's gonna, necessarily like yeah, I just that's how I see it. And like his shots good, I mean it's solid, it's not like does he necessarily have that like we talked about earlier too. Does he have that like 1, 2, 3 like tools that you can like be like, yo, this is your role and this is what you're gonna do? Like I think it's scoring, but in the NBA, you already have your scorers. You already have those guys like your KDs, your all your scorers, your Devin Bookers. Like you have guys designated on your team, and that's what you want them to do. So he runs like a Jordan Clarkson or like those guys that just can score, put the ball in
Yeah,
the hoop, and can give you can give you points off the bench. But you need more than that to win. And I don't know if he has it, but we will see. In maybe he'll get signed, and we'll see. And he's got a lot of flashes of greatness, but just needs to show consistent.
I hope so. I hope this is a guy that we look at, and I look at JD Davis, and I really hope he's a prove it wrong player. I hope he goes somewhere and showcases his skills and can become something. I really hope that this isn't the end of JD Davison. But again, Andrew, before we close it out too, I'm pulling this up. He is a former champion, and I've said this. I said this with the Drew Peterson thing too. That's another champion that he's gone. The list
Yeah.
is getting smaller and smaller by the day.
Yeah, it's smaller, but you got to retool. I mean, you have to,
You have to,
and
because this
especially
is
with
where we're going
this,
to spark and
yeah,
turn it into a
especially with the
championship.
market, especially with the, the
We are under
aprons,
the
and
second apron too.
we're now under the second apron. So, I mean, we've talked about it all year. I don't think it's actually gonna be a bridge season. I think it's. I mean, I think you can put those, you can put that on it. But I think the Celtics have an opportunity to compete at a high level this year. I mean, you have Jaylen Brown as your number one option, and then you got Derek White, defensive, menace, and he can put the ball in the hoop. I mean, there's just still a lot of guys that can really give you trouble, and I think not having Tatum, I think is just going to put a chip on these shoulders. They're going to be underestimated. They're going to have to find different ways to win, and they're going to have to switch up their play style this year without Tatum. And I think it could go two ways. It just looks like a total mess, or it could be like teams don't know how to compete with this. They're kind of not used to the Celtics play style, and they can catch a lot of people off guard when they play them, and they can kind of just build up this momentum, maybe make moves at the offseason and actually make a run deep in the playoffs. That's how I see it could potentially happen. I really do. And it's not even from a bias perspective. I just think the Celtics always find a way to rise to the occasion. And in the past, we've rose to the occasion with less. So I would not count them out.
No, totally. And I look at this. This is a year where obviously this is a younger team. They brought in a lot of young assets, and it's an experiment with a lot of them. And it's like, who can we develop to be that next diamond in the rough? That's essentially what the Celtics are doing. And they didn't see JD Davison being that, and
Yes.
they waived him. And again, the Celtics are a few moves ahead of us. Like, that's just ultimately what it comes down to. And JD wouldn't have had a lot of time with the Celtics having Anthony Simons and Peyton Pritchard, and you could argue Derek White at times being point guard ahead of him. So there wouldn't be a whole lot of time with JD Davison anyways. So again, the Celtics didn't want to go with him. They thought, all right, look, this is the guy that us waiving him. He's not going to be that diamond in the rough. They're still searching for that. So hopefully JD Davison could go with the team and become something. But any final thoughts you have, Andrew, before we close this out?
No, I'm excited to see what the Celtics have up their sleeve. If they're going to get anyone, they might not, but I personally think there's something else brewing. I just think so because I don't think the moves have necessarily been they've been big, obviously moving Holiday, Porzingis, but you kind of knew that. I feel like there is one more move that they have up their sleeve that maybe we don't necessarily know that could turn into something for the Celtics this season.
Hands down. But with that being said, you guys, that's going to close it for us. Thank you guys again for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and turn on post notifications to be notified every time we upload. Again, it's going to be crazy with breaking news. You guys saw this one with JD Davison. And again, Andrew and I already mentioned it, that there could potentially be some more breaking news ahead of the Boston Celtics. So make sure to like and subscribe and turn on post notifications, because we will bring you all the breaking news and we will keep you updated. So thank you guys for watching. We will see you guys with the next one. Peace, guys.